All right, recording in progress. Welcome, folks, to our third lesson. We are a little behind schedule because the first day that would have been class was Labor Day or whatever it was, Monday. And then I got sick and I didn't have a voice to even speak in the online class. So we're a little bit behind, but we're getting we're getting back into it. So where we're really going to be is kind of between here and here right now. We are introducing assignment 2, and we are done with assignment 1. Assignment 1 is finished. Okay? We're not touching assignment 1 anymore. There's no time to get extensions on it anymore either. It's been extended plenty. Okay? Now you need to look ahead towards assignment 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So first assignment was 20%. Second assignment, this one that we're doing right now, assignment 2, is also 20%, and it's super duper important. It's really important that you complete this assignment and you understand this assignment, because 3, 4, 5, and 6 will use the same skills that you must have. If you skipped assignment 1, then you can do assignment 2. But if you skip assignment 2, you're going to have a really, really hard time doing assignment 3. Okay? And these all depend on each other. So make sure you're looking forwards, not backwards. Okay, 80% of your course grade is still to be done. Okay, all of these add up to 80% that remains. Okay, and all of these assignments are actually all going to be working in Unity and making interactive stories. You know, making a game with a story. We'll be really practicing that narrative design, okay? So that's really where it's at. If you heard my instructions earlier, you'll know that you need to download the instructions for assignment 2, because there's a lot of links in there that you need to click, and there's step-by-step instructions, and there's extra materials there that you're going to want to follow, okay? So let me go open up that assignment. So this assignment 2 is going to be all about making a playable but very short branching story game using Unity and Yarn Spinner. About 2 to 8 minutes. It needs to be a story that branches based on your decisions. With hopefully some kind of meaningful and interesting choice, and you're going to record the whole thing and explain your work. Okay? So let me go open the assignment sheet. You should be able to find the assignment sheet under course content, assignments, assignment 2, and then click to view the instructions. Excuse me. Okay, so our player must be able to discover this game in different orders. They should be able to branch through in a non-linear way. We'll get to that. The most important thing right now is actually just doing setup. Basically, the entire class today, the whole class period, is probably going to be spent completing steps 1 to 3, and then writing you're going to do on your own time at home. Everything, you know, part 4 and 5, that should be 5, but anyway. The other steps you're going to be doing on your own. Question? No, the deadline is actually already, hold on, you should be able to see it. If you can't see the deadline, it's actually due the day before class. So it's not 7 days, it's 6 days. This is the original deadline. The only reason that it's so soon is because assignment 1 got extended too much. This is the normal deadline. All right. So there is a video tutorial containing the steps 1 to 3, but I want you guys to make sure you install all the stuff. Do step 0. Make sure you have all of this installed. Okay, make sure you have every piece here installed. Sometimes it could take a while. If you're on your own laptop or something like that, make sure you get Unity 6 installed. Actually, any version of Unity newer than 2022.3 should work. But I want to make sure you guys get started on that because it can take a minute. So this would work, for example, and so would this. Okay? 6 is newer than 2022. Make sure you have Unity Hub, Unity, Visual Studio 2022, which you should if you're taking, let's say, you know, Tom's class, you're doing C#, anything like that. Yes? Both. Both the blue one and the purple one. So you need Visual Studio 2022, and you need to have these features installed on it, which you can find by clicking Tools and Get Tools and Features, and then you go find Game Development with Unity. You need OBS to record your video for your assignment, and you need GitHub Desktop to use Git with. You won't need the command line, but yeah, if you install GitHub Desktop, you'll have Git. Yes? Say again? I think that includes game development with Unity, but I want you to verify that. So if you're in Tom's class and you installed everything as he had it, you should have this, but I want to verify. Okay, trust but verify. That's how you should be as a programmer, right? Verify. Okay. You'll need GitHub Desktop. Technically, you can use other GUIs for this, graphical user interface. Other ways to do it. There's plenty. Like for example, Visual Studio has its own Git integration. Visual Studio Code has its own Git integration. A bunch of stuff. But I'm going to show you guys using GitHub Desktop, so I want you to use GitHub Desktop. Okay. Then you'll also need Visual Studio Code, which may be confusing, but they it is a different program from Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code is kind of like a smaller and lighter, less feature version of Visual Studio, but it's used for, it has a slightly different use case, and we are going to need it to use Yarn Spinner extension to make it easier to make our stories in, okay? So please make sure you get both. The difference between Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code is kind of like the difference between Microsoft Word and WordPad. So one of them has more features. Microsoft Word has more features. That would be Visual Studio. And WordPad has less features. You know, it's more of just a plain text editor. And that would be basically Visual Studio Code. Okay. Anyway, we need both. The purple one and the blue one. So Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio. Visual Studio is the one where it's kind of got the infinity symbol, the purple infinity symbol, and Visual Studio Code is like half an infinity symbol. Anyway, open the links in the document so that you can find the download page for everything. Right? It's easy that way. Right? So we got like, I don't know what that is. It's like a sideways tent TP. It's a what? It's a fish? Yeah, it's a fish. Yeah, it could be a fish. Apps Anywhere, yeah, if you're on the computers here, then use Apps Anywhere. If you're using your own laptop, you should also get Apps Anywhere as well, so that you can use the college-provided software. You're going to need it in the future if you don't have it now anyway. You will need it. Okay, so please follow through with those steps. Okay. Then also in Visual Studio Code, you're going to need to install this extension, this yarn spinner extension. I'll go over that in class as well, but yeah, please do that. You'll also need to find something to decide what you're going to use as reference material. We're not going to do this right now, but you need to pick a GDD or a screenplay. It doesn't even have to be your own GDD, and it doesn't have to be your own screenplay. But pick one of those two things, a GDD or a screenplay, that you're going to use to help you write. So what I'm asking in this assignment 2, is I don't want you to spend all of your time stuck on deciding what to write narratively, because you're going to spend most of your time just making it work in the first place. Okay? So this time the focus is not on writing at all. Well, even in assignment 1 it wasn't that much on writing. It was mostly on format. This time around, I want you to not create something completely original. I don't want you to make something completely new. I want you to base it off something else. So you could take your screenplay, for example, from assignment 1, and then you're going to just think about, you're going to make a story adaptation of that has interactivity, that has choices, that has some kind of non-linear story. Okay? That's what you're going to be thinking about. You're not going to be thinking about coming up with a brand new game idea. Okay? Either way, when you submit, you're going to need it to be cited in your project, and you also need to include a copy of the entire document when you submit. So if it's a GDD, include the entire GDD. If it's a screenplay, include the entire screenplay. Upload the whole thing when you submit, so that we can see the comparison between what your reference material and what you made. Okay? It must be based on something. That's a required step. And you need to know who made it and where it came from, all that stuff. Okay, cite it. Including if it's you. You need to cite yourself in that case, if it's you who made it. Okay. All right, part 2. Find the documentation. You need to click these links. I need you to click these links, and I need you to bookmark them, because you will be forced to reference these materials time and time again. This is a programmer's job. It's like 80 to 90% of a programmer's job at the end of the day is actually going to be spent figuring out code that other people wrote. Not even your own code. Because we stand on the shoulders of giants. There's so much code that exists already that we are building upon. We're using a game engine. To use a game engine, you have to understand that the developers of Unity put a lot of effort into building a whole bunch of features. We have to learn those features. We have to learn how it works. And it's kind of our job to do that. It's very normal and expected that you as a programmer will constantly be looking at this stuff. Even once you get really good at programming, even once you're very experienced in Unity, you will still have to go back to the manual. Because nobody keeps all of this in their head like an encyclopedia. Nobody does that, okay? That's not how programmers really work. Programmers work not by knowing everything, but by being able to figure it out, finding the right sources of information, filtering that information, and knowing some things about how the pieces can fit together, right? Like having the basis of understanding of the language so that you can read text in that language, so that you can understand these pieces. But you're not expected to know all of this by heart. You're expected to read the documentation. Unity's documentation, thankfully, is really, really, really good. It is literally the best documentation of any game engine or API or programmer's tool that I've ever seen in my life. It is the best, okay? They have examples. They have a whole Unity Learn section where they teach you how to use it. like this link right here, Unity Learn. So there's, you know, a bunch of tutorials and stuff like that, right? That tell you how to get started, so on. It has two parts. It has the manual and it has the scripting API. The manual tells you how to use it. The scripting API is kind of like a catalog or an encyclopedia or a thesaurus, basically, containing all of the things, all the definitions of all of the classes, structures, and functions that Unity, the game engine, offers as part of this thing called an API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay, you'll see this word a lot in programming. We'll get to that. This word will come out a lot. All right? Don't skip these steps, guys. Do not skip bookmarking the documentation and actually using the documentation. There is a lot of information out there to help with Unity, but a lot of it is going to lead you down a different path that is not going to help you succeed. Okay? This, I know, I can tell you, will be correct. But not everything else you find will be correct. Okay? So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying you can't find materials that help you with Unity that aren't, that are correct. I'm just saying this is what I can tell you is correct. And I know there's a lot of things that definitely are not correct. Okay? Also, learning this way is going to help you in the long run by giving you the right vocabulary and the right understanding compared to other things like YouTube tutorials that are not going to actually help you make different things afterwards. They don't do a good job at that. Anyway, you'll need to get comfortable with Unity and its workflow and its interface and stuff like that. We're going to spend some time here in class doing that. If you haven't already, please make sure you started the installations of all those things I asked you to do. I've been stalling for time to give people time to do that. That's what I'm doing right now. Yes, what's up? Version 6000, anything is going to be fine. If it's 6000, that's fine. Get that. Okay, so we will make a Unity project. So assuming you have Unity installed and Unity Hub, you're going to make a 2D project. Hang on a sec. Let me give a slight update to that assignment. The numbering on the sections is bothering me as well. Hang on a sec. Okay. I don't know if that's a universal thing. If you download Unity Hub, it does not guarantee that it'll also download Unity. So definitely verify that you have it. Okay, hang on a sec, guys. I'm gonna update this for version 5. There we go. Okay, I've got an updated version here of this document. Cool. Yes? When you're installing Unity 6, right now you don't actually have to worry about platforms, but just make sure you have Windows as a platform. Yeah, that's about it. It should include that anyway, but we lost one of the TVs over there. I don't know what happened to it. We don't have IT right now, guys. We're on our own, so. Okay, so API stands for Application Programming Interface. Basically, an API is existing code someone already wrote to make your life easier. That's what an API really is. Application programming in the sense that it's for programming applications. Apps, like a game, is an app. And interface, as in that is where you, the programmer, come in contact with other systems that you didn't write. So it's where your code touches other people's code. Because we, as programmers, we work on different levels, different layers. Okay, so somebody had to go and invent integrated circuits that would allow us to have computing hardware. Then somebody had to develop a layer of instructions that could be run on that hardware, and it's in the layer above. Then somebody had to make those instructions more readable to humans because those instructions are really not very legible. You know, it's like binary. Okay, so then somebody had to create another better language to communicate and program computers that is a little better. Okay, that but still is not very human readable. Okay, the instructions still look like just a bunch of numbers and letters almost. Okay, then somebody had to create layers on top of that. Okay, like C and like C#. Okay, and then on top of that, there's a bunch of other code that does stuff like drawing things to the screen, like opening a window in your operating system, stuff like that, right? And so there's so many layers, I can't even draw them all, right? There's layers, 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 and layers. So there's all this huge stack of technology, okay? And we are standing on top of that stack, and we just have our own little section. We're building our own little brick, our own piece of a game that sits on top of that, okay? We stand on the shoulders of giants. All of these who came before us, right, are ancestors of code, basically. We're the last code bender, okay? And we're writing code that uses these lower layers. They're dependent on each other, right? So the API, an API is just a name for the interface, which is the place where these layers touch. That's it. So you're writing your own code, but you don't want to have to know what everything that came before, and you don't. You don't have to know everything that came before. All you need to know is the API, the little pieces that you're allowed to control, that were given to us to control. We don't need to worry about how a USB port works because other programmers have built layers of abstraction, okay, that allow us to be thinking on a high level of programming rather than a low level of programming. Low and high level programming does not refer to skill level or something like that. Low and high level just means how far up this stack of technology are you? So low level programming would be closer to dealing with ones and zeros directly, right? And high-level programming is what we're doing here. We're using those lower layers. That's what we're doing. So the API helps to hide those lower layers. That's what it is. And you'll pretty much always be using APIs unless you're actually physically banging rocks together to make a computer. You're always using an API, okay? It's just existing code, that's all it is. And with an API also comes documentation. So whatever layer you're at, you're gonna need to read the documentation layer of one layer below you. Maybe two. Maybe three. Okay? Thankfully, you don't have to read all the way to the bottom of this whole stack. But you may need to read the documentation of the layers below you. And if you're a good programmer, then you also write documentation for the layer you're on so that you can help the others who will come after you and stand on your shoulders. But that's for another time. Right now, we're just trying to get ourselves positioned and understand what we're looking at. Okay. Anyone ever heard this term before, though? Low and high level coding? Yeah. High level means basically more executive, more like a high level management position. Is a manager better than the employee? No, not necessarily. Do they work harder? Not necessarily either. They just are looking at things on a different scale, right? So when we're coding at a high level, we're looking at things on a different scale. That's all. All right. So we're gonna make a Unity project. Make a 2D project. Don't put spaces in the name or any special characters. A special character is basically anything except A to Z, capital and lowercase, 0 to 9, an N dash, that's this little thing, and an underscore. Nothing else. Yes? Command line is not fine. Install GitHub Desktop. Yeah. I will show you instructions on GitHub Desktop. So please install GitHub Desktop. Keep the command line. Don't get rid of that, because you may need it to save your butt from other problems or something like that when you need more power. Yes, well, that too. But there are people in this class who are just in this class and not in others. Okay, so. Other things that you should know. Don't name it really long. Don't make it in a folder that is inside a OneDrive folder. Oftentimes on Windows, the default folder is going to be in like Documents or something like that. But if you look at it, Documents is in OneDrive. That's a problem. It needs to be on your local computer, something like this. I don't feel like explaining every detail of why all of this needs to happen, because whatever. But the short of it is most programs don't like characters other than these, basically American letters, and stuff like that. For historical reasons, there's a lot of systems that just can't handle it. Git can't handle it. Git can't handle it if you put a space in the name of your thing. So don't put spaces ever. Some programs, they can handle having spaces. Like I think Unity is okay with having spaces, but then when you use Unity and other code at the same time, or other things, other programs like Git, then it won't work. So just use these. Otherwise, something down the line might give you a problem, okay? This path name thing, Windows has a limit to path names, and if you do this wrong, and if you have the the names are too long, like the path for the file is too long, then at some point while you're developing, you could actually run into the path name limit, not wherever you're working on, but at layers, at folders and subfolders beneath that you didn't make, that Unity is making for you to do what it does under the hood. So at no fault of your own, you could be within the character limit for file paths, but then Unity could exceed the character limit and you're screwed. If that happens to you, it will not tell you why it doesn't work. It just won't work. So that's why it's really scary. It's way more scary if you don't know why it's not working, right? And this is a problem where if you run into that problem, it won't tell you why. So that's why I'm recommending you have a really short path so it won't happen. Save yourself the headache. OneDrive is kind of like a cloud syncing system, but it will fight with Git because Git is also meant to do that job. We're going to do that job with Git. We're not going to do that job with OneDrive. Also, it will clog up your OneDrive like crazy because OneDrive isn't designed to do what we are planning to do with Git. So it will just not work very well. It'll quickly fill up and then Microsoft will start asking you for money, and you don't need that. We can just use Git. And it will actually make conflicts, like it will mess things up a bit. So none of these will mess things up in a completely irreversible way, but just we'd like to avoid problems if we can, because we're still going to have lots of problems anyway. So just picking our battle. Okay, let me make a Unity project. It might take a minute, so I'm going to do it now. I'm going to go to projects. I'm going to hit new project. I'm going to select 2D built-in. Oh no, actually I'm going to change my version to Unity 6. Universal 2D, sure, that's good. It actually doesn't matter too much because we're not going to use the 2D features anyway, but I'm going to click 2D anyway. I'm going to select the location. I put it here in a pretty small file name. I'm going to select this as my folder, and then I'm going to give it a project name. So whatever folder I've selected, this _GC is what I've selected. Then it's going to make a folder called project name, with this project name in there. This has a space in it. It needs to be removed. It's not a problem for Unity, but it's a problem for Git. So make sure it doesn't have a space in it. I'm going to name mine... it's going to be specific for assignment 2. So... I'm going to name it like so, with underscores instead of spaces. I'm going to check this off. Don't connect to Unity Cloud. I don't need this organization thing. It doesn't really matter. And I don't want Unity version control. I'm going to use Git. Git is going to be my version control. Okay, then I create, and then it's going to take a while, and it's going to generate some files and folders. So if I go and find that location that I supposedly just placed the thing, so you'll see that it made game 1002 _A2 _1 PM as a folder. That folder is going to contain an assets folder, a library folder, a logs folder, a packages folder, some specific named folders. Leave these alone. The naming of these is important for Unity's to work properly. And also when you see these folder names, you'll recognize that whatever contains these folders, that's a Unity project. So your Unity project, when I talk about a Unity project, or when I say submit your Unity project or something like that, this whole folder is your Unity project. Some of these folders you don't actually need because it will regenerate them when you open the project. For example, what it's doing right now, what it's doing is it's going to be installing packages, and it's going to be importing stuff, and it's going to be putting stuff in this library folder, in this packages folder, and stuff like that. But yeah, you do want to leave them alone. You just don't want them to be on your GitHub repository. So we'll deal with that. I'm just gonna wait for it to do that. While I do that, I'm going to continue going through instructions here. So once you make your Unity project, you're also going to want to make a Git repository. Technically, you can make the repository first and then move the project into the repository, but you need to make sure that either way, no matter how you do it, you need to make sure you do this correctly, okay? And you're gonna need to have a README file. I'm gonna do that through step 5 here by doing this step. Again, there's tutorial videos and stuff like this here as well to help you, but I'm gonna do it here. Please try to follow along at least. And if you can't, there are steps and video details there to help. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find that folder and make sure I know where this folder is. I'm going to click the address bar and check to make sure this is what I think it is. Okay, so it's not in a OneDrive folder or something like that. Please check that. Actually click the address so you can see the whole, this is the actual path, right? Okay, then I'm gonna go open up GitHub Desktop. Okay, then I'm gonna go File, New Repository. And I'm going to make sure that I recognize this spot. I'm gonna copy paste this. I'm not gonna type it because I don't want to make a typo. Copy paste. Then, pay attention please. Take this part here, the last part, which is the name of the folder that your Unity project is in, right? So that's your Unity project folder. Take that out and put it here. So similar to when we were making the Unity project, you selected a target folder and then you gave it a name and then it would make a folder called this inside there. That's what it did, right? So when we made the Unity project, it did that. The GitHub repository is going to do the same thing. So it's going to go into this folder and it's going to make a folder or find a folder named this, and it's going to put the repository there. We want the repository to be in the same folder as our Unity project. We want them to be in the same place. So both of them need to go in this folder, right? So that's why I'm going to say it should go to this GC folder, and then the name of where it should put the repository is this, and it's the exact same name. No spaces. Spaces aren't allowed. If I try to type a space in here, it won't. It'll say, oh, it's actually gonna make it different, which is a problem, because then it won't put it in the same place as your Unity project, and you're gonna have a problem. We can fix it, but let's avoid having that problem. Don't put any spaces in it. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to select this, add a README, and I'm going to cite my sources in that README later. I'm also going to select a gitignore file. So I'm going to scroll around and I'm going to find Unity gitignore, okay? Then I'm going to verify what it says. This repository will be created at this location. That's what I want. I want this to be the exact same thing as my Unity project, which is correct. Okay? If you don't do this correctly, if you don't do it correctly, we can still fix it. But it's better not to make the mistake in the first place, if we can. It is fixable. It's always fixable. And you can get my help. I'm going to hit create repository, and then I'm going to be able to go around and help you fix problems if you have problems, okay? I'm going to hit create repository. Okay? Then, how do I verify that I've done that correctly? You should be able to verify that you've done it correctly in a few ways. First of all, your Git repository, if you check history, there should be initial commit, and there should only be like 50 changed files. There should not be like 3 changed files. There should not be like 3,000 or 30,000 changed files. There should be something on the order of tens. you know, on the order of magnitude of, you know, let's say 30 to, or 40 to 90, okay? But there shouldn't be 1,000. There shouldn't be 3. Okay? So make sure you check that. You'll also verify that it's not in a OneDrive folder, and you'll need to verify that you can find this .git file. By default, you may not see that. So for example, if you're on your lab computers, or your home computer, anything, you'll need to go to View and click Show. And I want you to check on all these 3: hidden items, file name extensions, and item checkboxes. You don't need this one, but it's better anyway. So turn that one on. You definitely need these 2: file name extensions and hidden items. So without hidden items on, I can't see that .git folder. With hidden items on, I can see it. It is hidden because you're not supposed to mess with it, but you want to know that it's there. So you want to verify that .git folder is here right next to assets and library. Okay? Excuse me. So this little file folder right here, that's your entire Git repository. This is what contains the history of everything you ever did in this folder. So this is going to be watching all of these other files and folders that you have here, and everything here and inside, below. But it won't be able to see anything that happens outside. That's all. Okay? So make sure you have that, and make sure you have this here as well, this .gitignore file. So this is a file with an empty spot which is just named .gitignore. So it doesn't have like a file name. It's not named, you know, joss.gitignore. It's actually not even named unity.gitignore or something like that. It's just named .gitignore. This is a text file. You can actually open it. Here, you can right click and hit open with and find Notepad, and you can open it with Notepad. You can open it with Visual Studio Code if you got that. Visual Studio Code, you know, and it will at least show you green as comments, so comments are green. Anyway, it should look something like this, the file. If it doesn't look like this, then you may need to get the contents, and you may need to get these contents to put them in here. We can fix that as well. You should also be able to find this README file, readme.md. That's automatic. That's generated when I click the make a README file in GitHub Desktop. But this is actually it's not a big deal because it's just a text file. It may as well be a .txt file. MD is just another type of text file. Okay. This is all it says. And this is where you're going to put your references, your citations, links to resources you used, stuff like that. Okay? Acknowledgements, thanking your cat for helping you stay sane, stuff like that. Okay? So what I want you folks to do is just make sure that you have a Git repository, local Git repository, so it's here on your computer, that it's not too many files, that it's in the right spot, and it's inside your, it's the same place as your Unity project, and make sure that you can open your Unity project, and when you do, you'll get something that looks like this, which is there's nothing in it. That's fine. Yours might look slightly different. I just have a certain custom layout I like, that's all, right? Right, this is my layout. Okay, that's all. But the default layout looks like something like this. Okay, so I'm gonna give the recording a pause, and I want to verify that you guys are at this stage. All right. So at this point, now we've cloned. We've asked GitHub to clone what we've done. When you hit the publish button up here, and it's going to change. It's no there. You don't see a publish button anymore. Now, a copy has been made that lives on GitHub servers somewhere. I don't know where, but there's some big server farm somewhere with a computer with a copy of your repository on it. Okay, and they have also lent you a web address by which you can access these files. And what you've done is your local repository that exists here, in my case on my laptop, now has a connected remote. So it has a remote repository, also sometimes called an origin, where this is going to act as our ground truth, as our primary, let's say, if there's a fire or something like that, we lose our computer, then this will save us, right? And this is also going to connect us with other computers if we want to add collaborators on the project, right? Which you will add me as a collaborator. Or if you just have another computer. So let's say I'm using the school computers here. Then I make my repository, I publish to GitHub. Now there's two copies. There's one on the school computer and there's one on GitHub. Then I go home, I have my desktop at home, and then I want to clone the copy from GitHub onto my desktop. So now there's 3 versions of that repository. 2 of them are connected to this origin, right? So that's kind of the architecture that you have going on here. GitHub allows us to have this centralized cloud version of this entire history of everything that ever happened to your project, because that's what Git is. It tracks history. And then it allows you to connect your multiple different other computers, like my laptop and my desktop, or multiple developers to this as well, right? So that's what this is offering us. It's offering us this one kind of centralized location. Technically speaking, you could host your own server. You don't need GitHub to do that. You can host your own Git server. Your desktop at home, you could run that, and then you could have everyone clone from your desktop as the remote, as the origin. That's also possible. We're not going to do that, but it is. Of course, that's basically what GitHub is. They just happen to have a bunch of computers with free space that they lend you for free. Pretty good. Okay, so hopefully we got pretty far along. I do want to move on a little bit to the next step here. Just maybe a smidge of another step, okay? Again, there are instructions available to follow along in the assignment document, and I will post the recording of what we were doing here in class. Okay. Still, try to get as much done as you can now. All right. So hopefully we've got to the point where we can start on the next step, part 3, yarn spinner. So for yarn spinner, you're going to need to open this documentation page. And we're going to follow this documentation page here. So yarn spinner is very helpful. It's just a set of existing code and objects for Unity. Actually, they have for other game engines as well, but the one we're dealing with is for Unity. And it will make it easier for us to make interactive stories, okay? So it's like an API, but a little bit more than API. A little API and a little assets. Excuse me. We'll see what that means in a minute. Anyway, you can see examples of games made using this as well, and that's pretty neat. Let's do this. New question mark start here. All right, so there's a beginner's guide. There's some fundamentals. This documentation is pretty good. There's tutorials and stuff like that. I'm actually going to go back though. I'm actually going to jump ahead a little bit to this spot right here. Yarn spinner for Unity, because this is the Unity specific instructions. And guess what? There's another video tutorial here. Do make sure you have 2022.3 or newer. But anyway, we will do these installation for Unity steps. So I'm going to click next, installation for Unity. There is a tutorial here, but I'm also going to follow this and the text. So text is sometimes nice because you can search it, you can scroll back and forth easily anyway. So you can download Yarn Spinner for Unity in a variety of different ways. You can get it from the itch.io store, and you can get it from the asset store. I don't want you guys to do that. Why? Because it costs money. I don't want you to spend money. I want you to be smart and realize that this option here costs money, this option here costs money, this option here is free. So we're going to do the one that doesn't cost $75. Paying the money is for the support and from the developers. Okay, it's for it's to show your appreciation for the product as well. And if you are like a real developer, you know, if you are making a real game, then you know absolutely it's worth it, right? It would be worth $300 with the amount of time it'll save you. But that's a different story. We're trying to learn, so we're gonna do this. You can follow this instruction, but I'm actually gonna do this one here. I'm gonna do install via OpenUPM. So in Unity, I will go here. I'll make sure this is open. I'll keep the documentation also open. I'm gonna flip back and forth between them. So you need 2020 or higher, no problem. First need to configure your project so it knows where to get the package from. In Unity, edit, project settings. Then select package manager. So, edit, project settings. Select, among all of this list, package manager. Okay, now what? This window is where you tell Unity where to find packages that come from registries besides Unity's built-in one. So packages are add-ons. You can extra features you can add to Unity, the game engine. Yarn Spinner, the devs of the Yarn Spinner, have their own package that you can install to Unity. That is Yarn Spinner. But Unity doesn't know about it. You can tell it where to find it. So we're gonna just follow these instructions. In name, put that. Okay. That. Okay. URL, put that. Okay. Copy. Don't copy the period. Paste. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. In scopes field, Control C, okay, Control V. And there's no spaces, there's no periods in here. Okay, then I'm going to scroll here, hit save. Okay. Then let's go back to the documentation here, hit save. Okay, good, we did that. When you're done, it should look something like this. Okay, something like this. All right. Now you can actually install Yarn Spinner. So go to the package manager. So this is not the package manager, this is project settings for the package manager. I'll close project settings because I'm done with this. Then I will go Window, Package Manager, and I will find My Registries, OpenUPM, and it'll say Yarn Spinner is here. I will hit Install. Okay, and then that'll take a minute, not too long. But then it's gonna say, yeah, hit install, it'll download and install. You can verify by looking for Yarn Spinner under packages in the project pane. Okay, so let's verify that it's installed. Oh, it's still installing. I can't yet. Once that's done, Oh, okay. I think it's finished now. Once that's done, I'm gonna go look in packages. So there's a packages folder, and then Yarn Spinner starts with a Y, so it's alphabetically at the end. So it'll be there. And then I don't need to touch it. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm gonna go back to the assets folder and stay there. We'll talk about all of these pieces in a minute, okay? All right, so make sure you can follow these instructions. Then the next step is actually going to be starting to use Unity and Yarn Spinner, okay? But I'm going to pause before we get there. And I'm going to do another walk around and try and help people get here. So try and follow these instructions. Installation for Unity. And then get to the start of Unity Quick Start. All right, let's pause. Okay, so we've installed Unity. We have a Unity project. We have installed Yarn Spinner. Now we should be doing these parts. So add a dialog system to the scene by opening the game object menu and choosing Yarn Spinner dialog system. Okay, let's try that. So here is Unity. Here is an inspector. Here's a hierarchy which will show us everything in the game world. It'll start by opening a scene. If you don't have a scene open, there might be something called like untitled or something like that. But this is a scene file. It's a collection of objects. We'll have to have a little bit of a lecture another time to cover that. Just because right now we're spending all the time fixing problems getting set up. So we'll talk more about Unity another time, okay? But what you need to know is to follow this instruction. You need to right-click in that window. So Yarn Spinner documentation here is expecting that you know a little bit about Unity already. So that's why I gotta help you here. So open the game object menu. Right-click here. Yarn Spinner dialog system. Okay. It's gonna ask you this. TMP Essentials, something like that. Say yes. Okay. Control S to save. And let's look at the next step. Create a new Yarn Spinner script by opening the Assets menu. So Assets menu is different from the game object menu. That's if you right-click inside the project window, that's the Assets menu. So the project window shows you your files, and your hierarchy shows you the scene, which is where all the game objects live. Okay? All right, so in the assets, we're gonna right-click in this window here and hit create Yarn Spinner yarn script. So that's what it asked. Yes, question? The instructions are at this web address, definitely. You might need to click around, but you're looking for the installation for Unity instructions first. You need to install first, then you can do this. This instruction also contains a link to do installation for Unity, where you'll click to do manual installation. Okay, cool. So I've created a yarn script. New yarn script. The name is new yarn script.yarn. Okay, cool. It says name the new file hello yarn. Sure, I will name it that. You don't have to, but I will anyway. You can name it different stuff, but I'll do this anyway. Okay, because we're following the instructions. Hello yarn.yarn. What matters is that this is going to be the same as this later. Doesn't matter what name it is as long as it's consistent. Anyway, open it by double-clicking it. Select all the text and delete it. Then paste this text below. Okay, let's do that. So if we've installed Visual Studio Code, as we were supposed to in the setup instructions, okay, then we can associate this type of file with Visual Studio Code. You can right click and hit show in Explorer, and then you can find that it's here. It's this .yarn file. If your computer isn't set up to open it in VS Code, what you'll want to do is right click the file, select open with, and then find Visual Studio Code. And then say always. So then when Windows sees a file with a name ending in .yarn, because that is just part of the file name, then it will try opening it by default with Visual Studio Code. Okay, so this is what it looks like in Visual Studio Code. It's going to say it's restricted because it doesn't know what this code is. It wants you to verify, yeah, you're not looking at malware. This code is safe. So you can say, trust the window. I'll go to manage and I'll say trust. Yes. Okay. Fine. And then the colors change a little bit. Okay. Other thing I can do is I can open up a whole folder instead of just opening up the one file. I can open up a whole folder in Visual Studio Code, which I will, and I should. So I'm just going to get rid of that, and I'm actually going to go hit Explorer on the top here. I'm going to hit Open Folder, and I'm going to go find that, oh, actually it happens to be already here. Well, I would go find my Unity project, and I would go find the Assets folder, and I would say Select Folder. So select that Assets folder. Okay, then it's going to have access to all the files inside that folder, and I want to say yes, I trust the authors of all of the files that are in this folder. They are safe to be browsing. They're not malware or something. So yes, I trust the authors. That's me. I'm the author. I'm making the files in here. So yes, trust. Okay. Now, there's only one file that I really care about right now in here, and that's this. Okay, hello yarn.yarn. Great. If you have the plugin installed, you will have some fancy colors. If you don't, then go over here to extensions. Sorry, it's called an extension. Same thing. Go to extensions, search Yarn Spinner. I promise you, you can follow all of these steps. You can do it. Okay, so go to Yarn Spinner and then hit install here. And what this is going to do is, it's not 100% necessary, but it'll make the colors nice and it'll make it so that you can see certain things. And it'll sometimes be able to point out problems and tell you what you did wrong sometimes. Better than not having it, that's for sure. Okay? Technically, you can do all the editing that you want without it. You don't need Visual Studio Code because you can always just go open it with like you could technically go open it in Notepad and then do all of your coding here. But we don't hate ourselves here. So we're not going to do that. We're going to work with the fancy colors. I don't want more pain. I will deal with the amount of pain that I must deal with already. That's it. So we'll stick with these fun colors. It'll also do something else. It'll let you visualize this thing, which is interesting. And you can kind of see there's a little editing feature here. It's not super important, but it's interesting. Okay, I don't need to save that because I'm going to delete everything in here because I'm going to follow those instructions. Delete everything and then copy paste this. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do exactly what it says. Paste. Save it. Control S. Control S. Get in the habit of habitually clicking Control S to save your files. Okay, and I will leave that alone. This title is important. The syntax of it being lowercase title, colon, space, and then a name is important. You can change this name, but you just need to know what it means if you change this name. This 3 dash is important, and this 3 equal sign is important. You shouldn't mess with those. Anyway, we're gonna just play with this as it is, and we'll learn about how it works. Okay? You'll get to the point where you're gonna be able to fiddle with it and learn how it works. And also the documentation has tutorials and description of how it works. Anyway, then save the file and return to Unity. Okay, then create a new Yarn project that uses this script by selecting the file and clicking the Create New Yarn Project button in the inspector. This will create a new Yarn project called Project. Projects are collections of Yarn scripts that get compiled together and can be used with a dialog runner. So when it says dialog runner, it's talking about this. There's a game object here called dialog system, and then there's some kind of component on here called dialog runner. That's what it's talking about. Anyway, I'll do what it says. I'll select this. I'll write, oh, actually, there's a button right here in the inspector. And I can click Create New Yarn Project. It says, this script is not part of a Yarn project, so it can't be compiled or loaded into a dialog runner. Either click this button, or add a folder to an existing Yarn project. Okay, I'm going to click this button. All right, so I've created a Yarn project. It's called Project. Now, make the dialog runner use the project by dragging the project you just made into the dialog runner's Yarn project field. Okay? Dialog runner is here. Drag project into there. So you can drag it, or you can also click this little bullseye and try and find it. The one I want is this. I'm going to rename it so I just can keep track of the name. Joss Yarn Project. Okay. Alright. So here, they're connected. You'll also want to turn on this button right here, Start Automatically. Say yes. And Start Node, select the name of whatever you have as the title up here. So if this is that name, you need to select that in your Yarn project as the starting point. In the dialog runner as the starting point. You'll find that here. Joss start there. Okay, and it's unlikely that your thing will work the first time, but I'm going to try clicking to see if I can play this to test it. So this is the Play in Editor button. This will try to run your game in the editor. This is the Unity editor. Your game lives inside the editor. Let's try it. It's unlikely to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. Oh wait, okay, it actually worked. I'm honestly surprised. I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm a little surprised there wasn't something I forgot. Okay, so what you should see in the end when you get this set up is you'll see it. It says "Wow," and then you can hit space. You can also click your mouse on this little arrow thing. My first ever Yarn script. Okay, and then you can select an option with your mouse here, right? And it'll go on. And you'll see that that text matches this right here. And you'll see that when it had the options, it was with these little arrow signs. So that gives you some hint about how Yarn Spinner's scripting language works. The actual information about how the Yarn Spinner scripting language works is where? The documentation page for Yarn Spinner. Read the documentation. That is your key. That is just how game dev works. That's just how programming works. You have to do it. There's no way around it. Okay? You will need to do that to kind of figure it out, and you'll also maybe make your own experiments and play with things and figure out, you know, what works and what doesn't. There's that too. Sometimes it's more fun to play with it, but sometimes playing with it, you can make a bunch of mistakes at once and then go a little too far. So you need to strike a balance. All right. So I think at this point, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna go around and help people get to this stage where you should be able to actually run the sample that was provided. Okay, so let's try and get to this point. I will save, and if you do get to this point, actually what you should do as well is, if you do get to this point, make another commit. Installed yarn spinner. Commit. Because I'm happy with that it works. And push, because I'm happy with that it works. Anytime you make progress on your code, or if you're done working at the end of the day, always commit and push at the end of the day when you're done working, or when you make significant progress even if you're not done. This is your way of saving your game, right? Alright, I'm gonna pause and walk around. Hey guys, can I get your attention for a second here? Two things to avoid. One, don't make changes to stuff like dragging things in here and whatever while the game is running. So if you see this is blue and it's got a big square, that means that your game is running. And if you try to make changes here and then you stop it running, all of the work that you did will be undone. Actually, not all of it, but it won't be as you expect, okay? So, depending on what you did, some of your stuff might be undone. Like if you drag the yarn project in here while it was running, it will get removed when you stop playing. And it won't work properly anyway. So, make sure you don't do that while it's playing. Also, if you click here, it will take you into what's called a prefab view, which is like the blueprint for this object, not the object itself. You don't want to edit that either. You want to edit the object itself, which you'll find in the scene. In the scene, there's stuff, including this thing. That's the one you want to drag the project into. If you accidentally click the wrong thing, you might go into here, and then here is not the object itself, it's the blueprint for the thing, so if you drag this in here, it actually won't work. Or if you find a way to make it work, which you can actually find a way to make it work, it will not be correct. This is bad. And it will say, oh, it's in a read-only folder, so the changes cannot be saved. That's a good thing. The Yarn Spinner devs predicted that we would do something stupid like that and put it in a read-only folder so we wouldn't do that stupid thing. That's a good thing. Anyway, also make sure that you don't like change the folder structure here or put something in aside another folder or something like that. This works. It also works if you do a couple other things, but I'd recommend you just keep these in the same place, okay? Any other questions that you think I could answer up here that might be helpful? Not up here? Okay. All right, let's continue. All right, folks. One last thing before we're done, okay? So this is where I'm hoping us to get, you know, for this class, okay? But that is only steps 1 to 3. The rest is still gonna be up to you afterwards, all right? So do your best, get as much done as you can. I will make time next class as well to be able to help you, okay? But you need to actually try to finish this assignments first and run into problems that I can help you fix. Okay? You need to really give it a good try. Don't just let it sit for a while, even though it's painful, even though it's scary, stuff like that. You need to engage with it. You need to read the documentation. You need to read the surrounding documentation about stuff like how Unity works in the first place. I will make a recording about that to help, but you don't need to interact with Unity a whole lot to get to where we are right now, okay? When you get to step 4, what you need to do is not write something original. You need to write something just based on something else. The most of this assignment is getting it working properly. And then you can add branching paths and stuff like that. but you'll be able to deal with that after, and you'll record something with OBS. You will post the recording to YouTube, and that will be part of your submission. Yes, questions? Yes? I want you to try as much as you possibly can before next class. That's all I'll say. Okay? I need you to try to at least make sure. I will extend it, but make sure you complete at least up to part 3. Okay? And if not, I'll still help you, but try and get there, because we will not be able to get any further unless you are putting in the work yourself. Okay? Because we actually had more planned for today, but we were only able to get here because, well, we needed more help, right? Everyone seems to come to this section. Nobody came to the 9 a.m. because they don't want to get up at 9 a.m. You know, at 7 or so on. Anyway, don't worry about it. Okay, the grading criteria are mostly, did you do it? Did you complete the thing? Do you have a repository? Do you have a yarn spinner? Does it have relation to your reference material? Right? Does it run? Does it branch? You know? Not, did you create a captivating story? That's not, we don't need that. We just need it to work. Okay? So don't worry about your story so much. All right. Thank you very much, folks. That's class dismissed. I'll see you next week. Make sure you have everything installed on your home computers as well.